This show furnished by Karl Gerber and Employment Lawyer Group.
Talk Radio 790 KABC, another exciting episode of Karl Gerber, Workplace Lawyer. I'm still Karl Gerber. This show is going to be really timely because just this Monday, the California Supreme Court came out with a major case that changes what an independent contractor is. So we've canceled our workers' comp segment here, and we're going to tell you about this case, but this isn't going to be boring. Trust me on that. You need to listen to this broadcast. It's really important. Everyone's life in California is honestly going to be affected by this new case about independent contractors. What is going on right now is we have a court that has made a response with a case, which happens to be 82 pages, in response to a lot of the new economies like Uber and Lyft. And in case you didn't know it, a lot of the drivers for FedEx and UPS are also independent contractors, and Amazon. So this case came out to try to set forth the law in a way that makes it much harder to prove someone is an independent contractor. It already was uphill battle, probably 80% of the time or more. When there was an IRS inquiry, the IRS determined somebody was actually an employee and not an independent contractor. But I read in the LA Times this week, and I want to share this with you. It's a Princeton and Harvard study, which sounds pretty reliable, but just to give you some perspective, 16.2% of the construction workers in the state and in the nation are independent contractors. So if you are going to have some work done at your home, or maybe you have an investment property, this new case could be affecting you. Or if you're one of the many workers working on the new marine park in Torrance, I think it's called Marineland, if you're working there as a construction worker, you may be getting misclassified. And I want to let you know, this is a program where it's okay to still believe Marineland is around. This is a place where you can kick it if you've been a Southern California resident that long. But for some of the younger people out there, I would encourage you to listen to this program weekly on Sundays from 7 to 8, because not only the older folks are going to be standing around the water cooler talking about all the funny jokes they heard on the show, and you want to get in on that, but if you've got 45 more years in your career, you might want to learn some of the things we talk about on this show, because things that people call me about are legal problems that may ruin their career. They may have worked at a company where they weren't paid right. They maybe were the subject of a termination when they had a disability, or maybe you don't want to be the manager that fires somebody for having a disability when you think all they get is FMLA. So it's not one show or two shows. It may end up being, if you listen to all these shows, you're going to earn yourself a bachelor's degree or a master's degree in the workplace. So in terms of statistics, where these independent contractors are, I've read that 16.1% of other services is also independent contractors nationwide. I would assume that could be maybe massage therapists, hairstylists. 13.6% of the business and professional workforce, independent contractors. 9.1% of education and health services. So if you're doing something at a hospital, you may find out you're actually being treated by an independent contractor who's a nurse. I have a case like that right now. A nurse in the operating room taking doctor's orders, misclassified as independent contractor. Financial services, 7.7% of that industry are independent contractors. So you might have an investment firm that is got a broker you think is working for the firm, but they're not. They're an independent contractor. The one I don't understand is 6.6% of the retail workers are independent contractors. So that seems a little bit odd. You go into somewhere like the Broadway or whatever, maybe the May Company, and everyone in there is working in the store, and it would seem they have supervisors and all, so I don't really understand why there would be independent contractors in retail. Leisure and hospitality, 6.6% of that industry, independent contractors. Maybe you're going to go on a boat tour. Maybe you're at a resort. These are independent contractors. Misclassified, most likely, because remember, 80% or more, when the IRS gets those cases, they decide it's an employee. Manufacturing, 5.5% independent contractors. contractors. So this show tonight is going to relate to you if you're doing commerce in this country. And keep in mind, we've got 53 million independent contractors in the United States. 34% of the workforce are independent contractors. And if this California Supreme Court case didn't come down, keep in mind, this week we found out California is the 5th largest economy in the world. I think it outtook England. If this case didn't come out, the country was headed in 2020 to being 40% of the workforce independent contractors. So, yeah, this matters. This is something you do actually want to listen to. So, what I've done is I've brought a guest in. Actually, the guest was provided to me, and I am going to ask her some penetrating questions, probing whether she's actually an employee of her employer and not an independent contractor. So I'm going to introduce to you the brave woman who appears to me to be a digital native and agreed to come on this show to discuss this workplace conundrum. We're going to see if she's an independent contractor. Could you tell us your name, ma'am?
Hi, I'm Cindy Duquesne-Kunzes.
Cindy Dukakakis?
No, Duquesne-Kunzes. It's all right. A lot of people have trouble with it, and don't worry about it.
Whatever. Okay, can I just call you Cindy D? That would be easier for me.
You can call me whatever you like, so long as you call me. It's an operator joke. It's an operator joke.
Okay, this is, yeah, I can see where this is going. So I'm always interested in asking employees just how serious they are about the job they have. That makes a difference for the lawsuit, for future lost wages, to see if they're, really good at what they do. And so I am wondering, Cindy D, how did a digital native like you get into the line of work as an operator? We don't even have landlines anymore, hardly, and you can't go call 853-1212 to get time. So this seems to be a dying breed. How does a young woman like you become a telephone operator?
Well, it started, I have to go back. For a long time, I was working after high school at a bookstore on Fairfax, by the Kibitz Room in Cantor's Deli, if you know the area. It was a Judaica bookstore, and the owner he was a very good man. I don't want to throw him under the bus or anything, but he was away on vacation. And
what does this have to do with being an operator?
Well, so I'm getting to this because what happens here is how I got into the operator business. So when the owner was away, me and a delivery driver were in the back stock room, and I was taking my lunch break and drinking a Yoo-Hoo. The owner's kids loved that drink. They were always around. I didn't really care for them, but it was available. So I'm drinking a Yoo-Hoo, eating my bologna sandwich. I walk away for a couple minutes to go get something in the front of the store. And I guess the delivery driver stepped over the Yoo-Hoo and knocked it over and spilled it all over the floor. And then when I came back, I slipped on the Yoo-Hoo and I broke my rotator cuff and had some other injuries. So I had to go out on workman's comp.
Oy vey.
So 2 years later, I was looking for a job, and I was ready to go back to work, but he was no longer around, because the owner had moved away to Israel, and the bookstore scene was kind of dead by 2008. So, eventually I found a job in a call center for hearing aids.
Yeah, I presume your life changed after you sinned there, and I guess I'm not sure where this is going at all. I wanted to hear about you being an operator. I will say, to bring this a little bit relevant, I had a case in 2008. It was a lady with just a high school education who was making $60,000 at a call center, and she had a disability claim, got fired for it, and she didn't find another job. She only was making like $9 an hour as a CNA, not even a CNA, but just someone helping out people. So that was the period of time the call centers went away. And I will also let you know that I won that binding arbitration, and it was a big one. It was about $539,000. So I guess call centers just aren't around anymore. But for whatever reason, you seem to still be working at one.
Well, the the call center I was originally working at, the hearing aid one, that did go away. That was offshored. They found, I guess they sent it to people outside the country. So I was pretty desperate when I found my current job, but I was able to land another job as a phone operator.
What city are you working in now?
It's in Pasadena. It's actually a really cool place off of Colorado Boulevard. It used to be a bank, and we're in the basement. The call center's in the basement, in this big, huge vault.
Interesting. So this is still Talk Radio 790 KABC. You're listening to Karl Gerber, workplace lawyer. When we come back, we're going to find out what in the world Cindy D is doing in the basement of a building, still working in a call center, and we're hopefully going to figure out if she is an independent contractor or an employee based upon this new California Supreme Court test that's going to change everyone's life.
Since 1993, the Employment Lawyers Group has been a consistent force in fighting for the rights of California employees. They've represented thousands of employees in cases in which they've lost their jobs, been sexually harassed, discriminated against at work, or owed wages individually or as a group such as a class action. The Employment Lawyers Group has maintained a high win rate and a serious record before the California courts. Please call 877-525-0700 for an experienced work lawyer. That's 877-525-0700. They have call takers standing by. Online, research the firm at worklawyer.ca.com. They have offices throughout Southern California. If you hire the Employment Lawyers Group, your legal problem becomes theirs to solve.
My number 2 does not look like a number 2. I don't know what to call it. Is there a number 3?
Table for 4, please. Anything close to the restroom.
A middle seat with these stomach problems? That's my fear of flying.
Sound like you? If it does, you could be one of the many people with a digestive condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. Even if you don't know what EPI is, you might know the symptoms: frequent diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain. If you have even just one of these symptoms, you could still have EPI, because not everybody experiences EPI the same way, which is why it's so important to open up to your doctor about all your symptoms. And the good news is, EPI is manageable, so don't keep a lid on it. Go to identifyepi.com, complete the symptom checker, and use it to have a conversation with your doctor. Don't keep a lid on it. Visit identifyepi.com. Brought to you by AbbVie.
My number 2 does not look like a number 2. I don't know what to call it. Is there a number 3?
Table for 4, please. Anything close to the restroom.
A middle seat with these stomach problems? That's my fear of flying.
Sound like you? If it does, you could be one of the many people with a digestive condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. Even if you don't know what EPI is, you might know the symptoms: frequent diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain. If you have even just one of these symptoms, you could still have EPI, because not everybody experiences EPI the same way, which is why it's so important to open up to your doctor about all your symptoms. And the good news is, EPI is manageable, so don't keep a lid on it. Go to identifyepi.com, complete the symptom checker, and use it to have a conversation with your doctor. Don't keep a lid on it. Visit identifyepi.com. Brought to you by AbbVie.
Talk Radio 790 KABC, Karl Gerber, Workplace Lawyer Show, heard this time on this station, all the time on Sundays. Before we broke, we were talking to a lady. I could not, for the life of me, pronounce her name, and I don't think she could either, so we're just going to call her Cindy D. She's told us before we broke she's a telephone operator. We're trying to figure out if she's an employee or an independent contractor under the new test the California Supreme Court came out on Monday. So, Cindy, we've been beating around the bush. Can we get to the point? What kind of an operator are you?
I'm a phone sex operator.
A what?
I'm an operator for the adult entertainment industry on the telephone.
What the? This is the second time on this show I've been set up with a guest First, it was a mediator who didn't want to talk about his cases, and now this isn't a normal operator. And I didn't even know they had 900 numbers anymore.
Well, actually, they don't. I think they're all 800 numbers now. I think 900 numbers went away in like 2012. But anyway, it's still a thing, and people still call in.
Okay, we got to get back to the law here. So does this business do anything other than taking calls from people that presumably are paying for these calls?
Well, right next to me, they also have like a psychic. She does fortune telling and tarot card readings and astrology, I think.
Wow. Adult entertainment operators and tarot card readers lined up in the basement of the former bank vault.
Oh, there's also, I guess it's like a phone a friend line. It's for, it's a group that cries. I guess a lot of teenagers call in and
cries.
Yeah, I guess it's like if you're, feeling down or it's the middle of the night and you need someone to talk to.
People call up to cry.
Yes, it costs $2.99 a minute, but you can call up and cry.
So there's actually someone on the other phone when these people are crying?
Well, not always, but there's supposed to be, yes. I probably shouldn't say that, but.
Wouldn't it just be easier if these people picked up the phone and cried instead of calling in where someone might or might not even be listening?
Well, maybe.
All right, so who controls these prices, the $2.99 a minute to cry on the phone, whatever it costs to talk to you? I don't know how much that is.
Well, the company sets the rates, my employer.
Okay, I'm going to try to handle this because, truth be told, some years back I represented an individual, a man, who worked for an operation maybe a little bit similar to this, but he was not one of the operators, not one of the fantasy operators. He just took the calls. But what he had to do was he had to keep people on the phone as long as possible before they got to the fantasy operator, and he thought this might be fraud. He thought it might be an unfair and deceptive business practice because the callers didn't want to talk to him at all. So we brought the case. We're suing for wrongful termination, and I get an investigator. And the investigator calls up the number to see how long he's on hold, just waiting around to talk to somebody, talking to someone like my client. And, of course, I advance the costs on these cases, so I advance the costs. I get the bill from the investigator, and it's $100. That's a lot of money for one of these things, but it's $30 being on hold. That's a lot of money to be on hold, not even talking to the person you want to talk to. But what was the other $70? That's what I wanted to know. Did the investigator stick around maybe and talk to the entertainer? I don't know. I never asked that question. So being that we have somebody on the radio show live who is an adult fantasy operator who's supposed to tell us, or I'm supposed to figure out she's an independent contractor, and I'm sure I can do that. I have one question I want to ask. I think our listeners want this. Can you give us your best sexy voice?
Sure, Mr. Gerber. Why don't you tell me about your dark fantasies? Would you like to be?
Wow, yeah. Dynamax, Dynamo hum. Oh, that's a Frank Sinatra. No, Frank Zappa song. I'm getting a little confused. It's been hot this weekend, and this is getting weird in the studio. But the case is Dynamax Operations versus Superior Court, California Supreme Court, and that's what we're supposed to be talking about. And we want to find out, is Cindy D, adult entertainment telephone operator extraordinaire, I presume, known to have customers pay hundreds of dollars to talk to her in the bank vault where her employer is, where they've got psychics sitting next to her, people sometimes there, sometimes not there, to hear people cry. I need to figure out if she's an independent contractor. Under the old test that the United States Supreme Court had, or has, and the California Supreme Court had, who brought in the tools of the trade was very important. So I want to know what kind of control this employer is giving you. If they control the operation, you're likely to be classified as an employee. So what kind of control is being done in this operation?
Well, I mean, that depends on the caller. I can be like the slave or the dom. It just depends on what they want.
I was referring to the control of the employer, like how the job gets done, stuff like that?
Well, I mean, I can be pretty creative. I have to say what I think the caller wants. Different personalities like to hear different things.
Do you have a supervisor? That's the kind of control I was getting at, because under this test by the California Supreme Court, control is very important. Who controls the work environment?
Okay. Well, I do have, like a supervisor or a monitor. They will sometimes listen into the calls. They want to make sure that I'm not giving out any personal information, that I don't give out, like my email or my personal name or addresses, or, I don't text them pictures or anything like that. A lot of the customers are older, so I think they just probably want email.
This is weird. I hate to ask, but is there a dress code in the basement operation where you're doing this telephone work?
Oh, it's workplace casual. It's nothing weird. It's workplace casual. No open-toed shoes, nice blouse, no jeans.
Yeah, this whole 900 number thing, it just seems a little passé. I'm having some problems with this. Not legally, of course.
Well, it's not passé. I mean, people still call in. They do. I mean, I was born, I think, when you passed the bar. So I hope my trade, lasts until I retire. Counting on it for retirement.
I thought that you already had some long career in a bookstore and some legit telemarketing thing. So how could have you gotten into this when I passed the bar in 93? All right, so we've got someone working on the employer's premise, taking calls, adult fantasies, of course. She's a little bit creative when she does the calls, but she has a monitor. And I do want to get back to the tool issue because it still matters with control. She's somehow, and I don't know how, bringing in her own tools to do this job. That might change my analysis. So do you bring in any tools to do this job?
Well, I do my performance over the phone. Seriously, I'm not actually with the clients. It's over the phone.
Yeah, I was more referring to telephone equipment. It's the employer's telephone equipment, I presume. It's their phone line, I presume the desks. You don't really need to buy anything for this job, do you?
Well, sometimes, actually. Yeah, sometimes.
What is there to buy if you're on your employer's premise working, talking to people on the phone?
Well, I'm supposed to play along with the phone calls to make them, sound interesting.
What do you mean?
Well, we have to make it sound authentic.
So what?
Well, I have to make noises.
What kind of noises? Why would you have to buy things to make noises?
Sound effects? Okay. You know that female adult toy that you were talking about on your first episode? The guy that had the copyright infringement with his manhood? He referred me to you. I have one of those. I have one of the molds. One of his toys.
You've bought or brought bedroom toys to work as an operator?
Yeah. I have a full drawer of toys at the office. My employer reimbursed me, though.
This is starting to sound very employee-like. Labor Code 2802 says the employer has to reimburse the employee for all legitimate, reasonable expenses. And it sounds here that the employer is actually reimbursing Cindy D for these things she uses at work, for lack of a better word. So I think we need to kind of move on, and I want to just briefly, I'm kind of losing my train of thought on this one, but I had an associate who worked for me some years back. He used to do workers' comp, and he had a case with a lady who did adult fantasies, and she suffered a repetitive motion injury. Sorry about that. I think it was carpal tunnel, because during her work, she wanted to make this as interesting for her as possible. So, that's really the only thing I can relate to this scenario that we're going into.
Well, I guess sometimes you can get injuries if you get really into the work, sure.
I hope that doesn't happen here. But seriously, why would people want to call this? I mean, don't they have like webcams now and stuff like that?
Oh, well, I mean, some people just like the one-on-one interaction. I mean, are you insulting my clients?
I'm not really saying that. It's just it's 2018, and the final question in determining an employer is, we've talked about control, but I'm afraid to ask, and it's going to be, are you independently established in another business that is the same business, but we cannot get to that now. We're going to have to get to that when we come back. Because if now the California Supreme Court thinks if someone has another business doing the same thing, they're doing at work, they may actually be an independent contractor. So this is KABC 790 Talk Radio, Karl Gerber, workplace lawyer, and we'll be back to find out more about Cindy D when we return.
Since 1993, the Employment Lawyers Group has been a results-oriented law firm whose goal is to get the client what they deserve. They've represented thousands of California employees who've lost their jobs, been sexually harassed, subjected to employment discrimination, or were owed wages on an individualized or group basis, such as a class action. They have a high rate of success. There are few situations involving employment law that they have not confronted. At the forefront of employee rights, they're often the first employee law firm to confront a new legal issue. For an experienced employment lawyer, call 877-525-0700. That's 877-525-0700. They have call takers standing by. Online, read more about the firm at employeelawca.com. They have offices throughout Southern California. Make your work problem theirs to solve.
Hi, Tom Bodette, coming to you from one of those open offices. They're designed to make it easier to share ideas and, apparently, the details of Cody the intern's love life. So if you're looking for some space to call your own, try Motel 6. They have the low prices you've come to expect, plus the peace and quiet you so desperately crave. I'm Tom Bodette from Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you. And Cody, you can do better. Book online at motel6.com.
Boss, there's a photographer out here who wants to do a piece on Jimmy John's for her magazine.
What kind of piece?
Well, she heard about a clothing optional delivery policy and,
Did you tell her the naked driver incident was a momentary misunderstanding?
Yes, sir, but...
Did you tell her it's our meats that are going all natural, not our drivers?
Yes, sir, that's not...
Did you tell her Jimmy John's is committed to serving sandwiches with only the finest all-natural ham, roast beef, salami, bacon, and real fresh turkey breast?
Yes, sir, I did, sir.
So she wants to photograph our sandwiches?
No, sir. Actually, she wants to do a calendar.
A what?
A calendar. You know, the men of Jimmy John's.
Dibs on January.
If you have to call a plumber, why not call one who shows up on time and smells good? Like Mike Diamond, the Smell Good Plumber, at 1-800-446-MIKE. Or you can always book your appointment online at MikeDiamond.com.
Talk Radio 790, KABC News Update. I'm Steve Cumming. President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un are likely to meet in Singapore in mid-June. That according to South Korean media reports. President Trump had floated the idea of holding the historic talks in the deeply symbolic setting of the demilitarized zone along the border between North and South Korea. But the two sides have instead chosen city-state Singapore as a third-party host. Hawaiians forced to flee repeated eruptions of the Kilauea volcano were allowed to make a quick visit home today to rescue pets, medications, and other essentials. As the number grows, at least 26 homes have now been destroyed. Temperatures in Phoenix reached a new high today, 106 degrees, breaking a 70-year-old record. The high temperatures will continue through the middle of the week. KABC SoCal weather, partly cloudy skies tonight with overnight lows in the mid-50s. More news coming up and continuous coverage on KABC.com. I'm Steve Cumming, Talk Radio 790, KABC News.
The skills you can develop as a soldier in the Army National Guard can give you an edge in the high-tech job market of tomorrow. The Guard offers career training to take advantage of your skills in science, technology, engineering, and math that can help give you a leg up to a high-paying and rewarding STEM profession. Get a head start on your career while earning money to pay for college. Log on to NationalGuard.com to learn about all of the STEM career opportunities in the Army National Guard. Sponsored by the California Army National Guard. Aired by the California Broadcasters Association and this station.
Karl Gerber here. Karl Gerber, Workplace Lawyer Show, live and downtown trendy Culver City. We're still on Talk Radio 790 KABC. I've been an employment lawyer for close to 25 years, but it's not every day that on your third episode of a show, you get an operator who ends up being a phone sex operator when you're trying to figure out if they're an employee or an independent contractor under a new test that came out by the California Supreme Court on Monday. So I do have to apologize. I'm a little taken back on this. Usually I can handle anything, but it's not on live air. So it's a little different, and I've got to ask Cindy D., who's our operator, and I want to ask her this question before we broke. It's a little weird, but the next thing the California Supreme Court is looking at to see if you're an employee is, are you in an independently established business elsewhere? So I'm afraid to ask, but do you do some kind of line of work like this somewhere else off the premise of your employer, which happens to be a bank vault, former bank vault in downtown Pasadena?
Well, I mean, I used to work with another adult fantasy operator. She called herself Butters. She was a size 2, which is pretty amazing because she was like 60 years old. Anyway, she started having back problems, and a couple of years ago, my employer let her work from home.
Let's stick with your situation for now. This petite home, work-at-home lady, that may be another story. So I think she's probably an employee I don't know, and I don't really want to talk about her. Let's stick with you.
Well, for me, like, I clock in, I do my 8 hours, I get like a 30-minute lunch break, 2 breaks, and then I go home, and the last thing I want to do is more fantasies for men. So no, I don't work.
We can be grateful for that for several reasons. One of which is if you don't have an independent business somewhere else doing the same thing, you're probably going to be an employee. The employer has the burden of proving all of this now, which is supposed to be new, but that was really the default under the labor code. The employer has the burden to prove somebody is an independent contractor and not an employee. So I'm glad to hear you're getting these uninterrupted meal and rest breaks. That sounds pretty employment-like. And I guess I would have asked you if this was before 2017, whenever you had a rest break case, you'd have these lawyers saying, well, what are you doing? Do you just make a lot of cell phone calls? Do you read magazines in between? Do you multitask? Because that might be considered your rest break, even though it's not uninterrupted. But by 2017, we got a case, also California Supreme Court, which clearly says these rest breaks have to be uninterrupted.
Well, sometimes, to be honest, sometimes when I'm on a call with a client, I'll be texting like other moms from my daughter's school, and we'll be like arranging play dates and or I'm shopping.
Well, I'm glad you can multitask when you're helping a man presumably live out his fantasies. So far, it sounds like you're an employee, but there's one question I do want to ask. Are you paid as an employee or are you paid as an independent contractor? Not that makes a lot of difference. So is your employer taxing you?
No, they don't take taxes out of my paycheck. I think I get paid on a 1099.
Okay, this is getting even stranger because we got this highly regulated workplace where the adult fantasy operator is getting a 30-minute meal break, uninterrupted, I presume. She's getting 2 rest breaks. I think she said, and I want to ask her, I think she said she clocks in and out, very much sounding like control. So this does sound like it's an employment situation. I don't know why they're paying you as an independent contractor. This sounds wrong in this highly regulated dungeon operation. Now, what about this equipment? What about the equipment at work?
Equipment.
Your telephones, like the desk you sit at, stuff like that. Presumably your employer is paying for that.
Oh, when you said equipment, I thought I was thinking I went in the gutter. I was thinking something else.
I guess you think like an adult entertainer. I'm trying to think more along the lines of case law.
You know, you said something earlier, and I wanted to let you know that I role play. We could do like legal role play where I'm on top of casebooks.
It's okay. I'm pretty much on top of these legal developments in employment law, and that's why we're supposed to be getting into this new independent contractor issue test in the California Supreme Court. She keeps asking me these questions. It just throws me off. Again, this is Karl Gerber, Workplace Lawyer Show. We are on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're talking to Cindy D., who is an adult fantasy operator who seems to have a regulated employment background, and I'm speechless. What's that?
Can I ask? Actually, I do have a question. Can I ask you?
I am afraid.
Okay, so I got offered another job different from the one at the vault. I didn't take it, but I wanted to ask you about it anyway.
So this is the story of my life. I get these endless hypothetical legal questions. People want advice on things that are never going to happen. This is my world.
There's a company that another one of my coworkers went to work at. She's wild and crazy. She needed more money. So she went to this other company, and she takes calls from home.
I presume these are adult-oriented calls?
Yeah. She does phone sex operating, and she's also on Skype as well.
Skype. I think this is going to invade some virgin territories. This is supposed to just be a telephone operator that I'm finding out it's an adult entertainment operator in a basement. Now we're bringing in the potential of webcams. I don't know.
No, not webcams. I think... No, she uses Skype just for the coordinator. I guess like she logs into Skype, and then the supervisor or the talent coordinator sees that she's online and that she's at home, and then they start routing the calls to her.
What else does the supervisor do? Because having a supervisor usually makes it very hard to say it's an independent contractor.
Well, her supervisor does similar things to my supervisor as far as like monitoring to make sure that you don't give out like private information. The supervisor also can help get her out of like a bad call if there's like a belligerent client, and she can tell the supervisor and they can block that client's phone number.
This sounds like a company that's really there for their employees.
They also promote their talent on a website, which is kind of cool.
Promotes? Like, what explains their special talents?
Well, yeah, they'll do that. They'll give a write-up of their talents, but they'll also do like pictures and measurements, astrological signs, fake ages. They'll do fake pictures too. If you don't want like a real picture of yourself, they'll make it look sexier.
Who comes up with the material that goes in these promotions? That might be legally relevant.
Well, sometimes if the talent's not good at it, the company will write up a little blog thing for you.
Okay, so now we're talking about some other environment I'm just supposed to give automatic legal advice on. It's people not working in the bank vault. They're working at home. The company is funneling in the calls, promoting talent on their website, which sounds like control. And again, this business is providing talent to discuss certain fantasies on Skype or whatever, and I'm still there's a technological back for here, and it was Skype and it wasn't webcams.
Well, the calls are still coming in on the telephone. You have to have like a landline. I think they just use Skype to coordinate and see when you're actually home. It's like their way of clocking you in and out, I think.
Sounds like an invasion of privacy, and it sounds like tight control and monitoring by an employer, but I'm kind of wondering, people actually pay for this stuff?
Well, yeah, they have set rates. The company sets the rate for my friend as well. Some girls get more than others, so some are just worth more.
Yeah, it sounds like age discrimination or pregnancy discrimination.
Actually, there is like a demand for pregnant women or mature women or MILFs. They call them MILFs. So, some guys like that. That's just their thing.
So, does this company with the Skype thing where you work at home and take these calls, do you turn on your computer only when you want to work, like Uber?
You can, but they require you to work a minimum number of hours a week. I think it's like 12. So you have to work that minimum amount a week. They want they want you to kind of get into a regular habit.
Habit? This sounds kind of nasty.
No, like, they want you to maintain a regular schedule so that your clients know when you're online and when you're not online. It helps you build like a regular clientele.
Yeah, it sounds like control again. It's sounding like employment, but I'm just picturing this like some guy, he calls at 7 a.m. every day, then another one calls at 10:30. And do they pay you 2 hours of reporting pay every time you have to show up for one of these shifts? Because if that's the case, you can't just come in for a 15-minute call. There's got to be reporting pay for 2 hours of pay.
Right. Well, right. Like if you don't keep your hours, they'll terminate you.
Well, it sounds like we have a real operator on this line here. So we're still talking to Cindy D. This is still Karl Gerber, workplace lawyer. We're examining a bunch of really wacky employment situations to figure out if this is employment or independent contracting. She's told us first she works at a bank vault with other people clocking in and out, doing adult fantasies. Then she's telling us about some other job she had some hypothetical legal question about. And when we come back, we're going to find out more about the work at home scenario. And I don't know if she ever did this job or what happened. I've been confused throughout this episode, going from telephone operator to adult fantasy operator. So when we come back, we're going to find out what Cindy D did at home as an adult fantasy operator. This is Karl Gerber, workplace lawyer, and you are still listening to Talk Radio 790 KABC.
The Employment Lawyers Group is a results-driven law firm whose goal is to get the right result for the client. They have represented employees with a high rate of success since 1993 throughout the state of California. They're only paid and if they are able to collect money from the employer, so there's not any upfront fees or costs in order to hire them. They have represented thousands of employees who've been terminated from their jobs, sexually harassed, subjected to employment discrimination, or are owed wages in an individualized or group basis such as a class action. Call 877-525-0700. That's 877-525-0700. They have operators standing by. They can also be reached at employeelawca.com. They have offices throughout Southern California. Hire them and make your workplace problem theirs to solve.
There's a difference between do it yourself and do it for a living. At the Home Depot, we get that. And we're here to help pros get the job done with the products and brands you trust. Technology to keep your job on track. Job site delivery to save you time. And bulk pricing on over 4,000 items every day to save you money. When you've got a job, we're on the job. The Home Depot. More saving, more doing.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I feel like a whole new person.
Disclaimer, you will not become a whole new person. This is impossible. You might be able to join a gym or diet program, buy a new wardrobe, get hair implants, but your DNA and physical form will remain the same. Geico waives any and all liability if you attempt to become a new person, except a cyborg. If you choose to become a half-human, half-cybernetic organism with lasers for eyes, the Geico legal team would be cool with that, because, quote, laser eyes are pretty sweet. Pew, 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 end quote.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Message and data rates may apply.
Guys, this may be the last time you ever have to think about hair loss. Because I'm telling you, Bosley is the real deal. They're giving men their hair back permanently. Their real hair. All it takes to get started on the hair gain train is a single text message. You'll get an absolutely free information kit and a free gift card when you text FUN to 85850. Check them out now. Bosley will show you for free how great your hair could look. Dude, this isn't your dad's hair loss treatment. People all over the country trust Bosley because they're America's #1 hair restoration expert, ahead of the curve with the latest technology. And the best part, Bosley's solution is permanent. You're going to love what they'll do for your hair. So drop what you're doing long enough to send a text. Get your free information kit and gift card for $250 off by texting FUN to 85850. Don't forget, that's FUN to 85850.
Talk Radio 790 KABC. Karl Gerber, workplace lawyer. I'm Karl Gerber. We've been speaking with Cindy D., an adult fantasy operator who I presume was going to be a normal telephone operator, as my guest on the show to talk about the new California Supreme Court test that changes how you classify an employee versus independent contractor is going to affect like 40 million people in the country, kind of important, maybe actually 60 million people. But this is a real wild card, and I've been noticing the phone lines are going off the hook. I have a monitor that I sit in front of. You can call 800-222-5222. I think there are a lot of guys that want to talk to Cindy D. I'm going to make sure we have 5 minutes near the end of the show to do that, maybe. Again, 800-222-5222. We are live. That's 800-222-5222. And I guess we need to continue this episode to figure out if she's an independent contractor. We went through her first employment in a dungeon-like environment in a former bank vault where she punches in and out. Then we got into some job where she's working at home, or I don't even know if she took the job. That's not that clear to me. Why do you have all this information, by the way, Cindy D?
I actually did work for that company for like a month.
My
friends stayed with them.
Oh, your friends did. How did the job end?
Well, my daughter was at home, and sometimes she wanted help with homework, and I just didn't think it was good for her to come in and listen to mommy working on the phone, so I decided not to take it.
Yeah, at least we have a little parental something here going on. Are there any other reasons, like, who ended this relationship?
I never left my husband.
I meant the employment relationship.
Oh, the supervisor was actually, she was really nasty. She was the supervisor assigned to me for training purposes. She had a fit when I said I didn't want to have to pay for a landline, because you need a landline for it. And I also made the mistake of letting her know that I mooched off my neighbor's Wi-Fi, and she didn't think that was a reliable or good way to conduct business. So,
was your neighbor's wireless unsecured? I mean, you're having all this adult fantasy stuff at home, and I mean, what if your neighbor sees this?
They should secure their wireless. But I was all ready to. Yeah, the supervisor was gonna give me the job. It's just that the whole thing went down with me not wanting to pay for a landline or the whole wireless situation. So, she had a whole bunch of characters set up for me to do.
Characters?
Mm-hmm. I worked really, really well as a Japanese nurse.
You're required to do all of these things?
We would do different characters, and sometimes we would have to, we were supposed to write like bi-weekly blogs or bios for the characters and do shout outs, like little, blurps or tweets for each character.
This sounds again like an employer controlling the situation, but
can I do a shout out?
If you must.
Okay, so, a couple of my characters, there was an Irish milkmaid and a farm girl. I can't really talk too much details because of the company guidelines, but I had a great limerick for the Irish character. Her name was Aisling Fionn. That was the Irish milkmaid's name. You want to hear it?
If we have to.
So, there once was a plumber from Lee who was plumbing his maid by the sea. She said, "Please stop plumbing. I think someone's coming." He said, "Yeah, girl." They did have a manual that you would read. It would describe the different kinds of clientele that you could get, like the different personality types. And they would give you advice on how to handle the conversation. They'd give you like a sample script of what to say to keep the caller on the line longer.
Right. This is live radio. We're on Talk Radio 790 KABC. This is still Karl Gerber, Workplace Lawyer Show. We're talking to Cindy D., who's telling us about a job that was at home, but seems heavily controlled by the employer. A very odd job involving adult fantasies where she had characters and the company was promoting her on the website. And it's live radio, so I just wonder, yeah.
What about food? You were talking about like
meal breaks? Yeah.
No, like they made us buy our own food in the vault, where I work in the vault.
Well, employers don't have to supply meals if you're working 9 to 5 as an operator, even if this is the artistic variety operator.
No, what I mean is sometimes we use like food for props. Like I use hard candy for sucking noises. And I make jello at home.
This might be the part of the show where I have to get up and say, no more jello.
No, I bring the jello to work, and sometimes I make them in molds, like a happy face with a big red nose, and then so I bring it to work, and sometimes I use the red nose first, and they don't reimburse me. I'm using a lot of jello.
Why would your employer want you to bring jello to work?
We have to make like squishy noises, you know?
Yeah. I think I get the point. So is this the job now?
Well, no, yes, this is the vault job.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And they're not reimbursing you for the jello.
No. Does that count as like a tool?
Yes. How much is this running you, the jello bills?
I'm using like a pack of jello at least for every shift. So
a pack of jello per shift.
Right.
That's quite a bit of jello.
I have a jello bill and hard candy as well, and sometimes whipped cream.
These are 8-hour shifts?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's some stamina to have to do something like this. So it sounds like the bank vault job is going to be classified as employment because it's at the employer's premise. It's using their tools, except the jello is not being reimbursed. Maybe it should. Maybe Cindy D should bring a lawsuit for reimbursement of the jello. I don't know. I'm not sure I want this class action for all the adult operators in the bank vault who have bought jello the last 4 years or whatever. I don't think I want my name associated with that one. I don't want to be known as a jello lawyer, but that one sounds like employment. The second one that we heard about at home was heavily controlled. It was at home, however, and it sounds like she was using her own. Well, she didn't have a landline, but she was supposed to be using a landline. So she had her own telephone. She had her own equipment. She didn't have wireless, but she was mooching off her neighbor to use it. So there's some things the employer wasn't providing. Now, I think if Cindy D had actually taken the second job with the characters at home, the employer could have said she's independently established in a business doing this kind of a thing. So maybe she's really not an employee, notwithstanding all this control. But I don't think so. And I will tell you, I had a case with adult actors or whatever you want to call them with the clubs. Some years back, there were a lot of those cases because they were misclassified as independent contractors. And the lawyer on the other side had been representing that industry for 40 years. And he told me that he had never in all his years ever won one of those cases that those ladies dancing were anything but employees. So the test, even before this new California Supreme Court case, was very hard, and it's not likely anyone should be doing this anymore. And it doesn't help the employee if they're misclassified. They don't end up getting Social Security taken out. They may get a bunch of IRS fines. I had a situation where I was building the Oxnard office, and I had a 72-year-old guy driving heavy equipment, and he did it because during his whole career as a contractor, he was paid as an independent contractor. He owned his own home, but he didn't live in the home. He lived in the garage because he never paid anything in the SSI. So I think that it's just bad for both sides. I've seen a lot of employers get these bills from the EDD, the different taxing organizations, and they have to pay it once they're popped for misclassifying people. So it would just be better if this charade ends. These cases are also very expensive. I had one last year. It was $800,000 for misclassified independent contractors. So it's better if these employers stop doing it. And we've covered today this new Supreme Court test about defining independent contractors when the employer has the burden, it's going to change the way businesses operate at this point. So we may find out this case was in direct response to the whole Uber, Lyft thing, where there was some theory that there might be a third classification of workers, and the Supreme Court shut that down. So in a lot of industries, a lot of things are going to have to stop. And a lot of these new economy industries from the internet, a lot of those were based upon misclassifying people as independent contractors. So if you have a legal problem, please call me at the office, 877-525-0700. That's 877-525-0700. This has been Workplace Lawyer Show, the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show. It will be on the same station, Talk Radio 790 KABC, next Sunday night from 7 to 8. Hopefully I'm not going to get a guest like this where I think it's a telephone operator that turns out to be an adult fantasy operator. Have fun at work this week, everybody.
This show furnished by Karl Gerber and Employment Lawyer Group. 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 Karl Gerber